If the Wolfman was here, he'd say, get your ass in gear. The Wolfman comes in here occasionally, bringing tapes, to check up on me and whatnot. Yeah. And the places he talks about that he's been, the things he's seen. And there's a great, big, beautiful world out there. And here I sit, sucking on popsicles.
Welcome back to the harbor. I'm the Kino Cowboy. We're here with Scott and Casher. Casher might have food poisoning. We'll see. Today we are focused on 1979's More American Graffiti. I'm just kidding. That's a stupid, shitty joke. And we're actually doing American Graffiti. Here's the thing. George Lucas, I think you can quote me on this. He said there are two things in his life that he regrets. One is the Star Wars Holiday Special. Two is More American Graffiti. I think Ford Coppola was really pushing him to do a sequel. Well, first of all, he pushed him to do the first one because he was like, hey, I'm going to challenge you to make an accessible film. And George Lucas is like, okay. And so he made this movie after THX didn't fucking land. It was too nihilistic and scary for people, I guess, at the time. Fair. But whatever you might say about the prequels, yada yada yada, it's a tired subject. This movie proves that the man knows what he's fucking doing and makes a good movie.
This one I was Red Tails. Red Tails is the other one that makes.
He didn't direct that movie.
Director
produced it. I heard Red Tails had tone problems. Like, it's trying to be this serious historical film, but also like almost a kid-friendly, like.
Yeah, it doesn't know what it wants to be.
Yeah, I didn't see it. But anyway, but if you don't like it, you're racist. But I was talking about this last night of the George Lucas hate of like, other than Star Wars and American Graffiti, what has he done? I'm like, any director who had done one of those would be highly acclaimed.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you never, just talking with my parents last night about it, we watched it, and my dad was like, yeah, do you never make a mistake when you're shelving boxes at the grocery store when you criticize George Lucas? You fucking losers.
Yeah, God forbid he fucking makes Star Wars and Indiana Jones and shit, and people are like, yeah, that's fucking annoying.
THX certification.
I feel like American Graffiti, though, in the last 10 to 15 years hasn't had the spotlight on it in a long time, and like I don't feel like enough up and coming film aficionados have seen it.
Do you really feel like a lot of I actually kind of know what you're saying. I don't lurk film Twitter and social media.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, is like people don't really talk about this movie in these circles lately. It was more of back in the 2000s, I saw it on message boards and people talking about it and stuff. And it's kind of I'm surprised Disney hasn't tried to exploit it in some way or somehow and be like,
God,
hey, remember this? Yeah, even more American Graffiti coming 2026.
Gen Z fucking American Graffiti.
And they get Ron Howard back in on it, dude.
That might be sick.
I could see them doing some Disney Plus car cruising miniseries, but very sanitized, not all the
people don't cruise anymore, though.
People don't cruise. I mean, but they could set it retroactively. Here's the thing. How much, and I'm not joking, how much of the target audience for this movie is dead?
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking about when they're at the sock hop, I was like, all these kids are fucking in their 80s now, or in their late 70s at least. If you're going by the time that's set in, that's crazy to think about. And George Lucas is getting fucking old too. Bums me out, but now I would like to say that I did write a book that is a coming of age hangout book because it's can't make the movie, but there are two films that inspired this book: American Graffiti, Dazed and Confused, two hangouts set in two different time periods. both meant a lot to the director that they made. You can see watching this movie how much this movie means to George Lucas, because this is based off of some of his experiences too, and how different it was to go cruise around in the 60s. And he wanted to make sure to submit that culture in film, because even by the time he was making it, cruising was kind of just a lost little thing in teen culture. So
The most dangerous
in this
thing I've
movie,
seen.
throughout this, I was thinking the whole time, how much of things like sock hops and the cruising culture, how significant was that? And it depends on what part of the country you were in various, I don't know, how important was it in the cultural consciousness, and how much of our cultural myths derive from just boomers getting a camera and recreating their youth and romanticizing it, whether or not that was actually that significant to the widespread culture. Because cruising, it was a subculture.
That's all they had to do, though. Now think about us.
Gas was way cheaper.
Back in high school, if we didn't have somewhere to hang out, we would drive around, but usually we'd go to like Hastings or some fucking fast food and sit around because we wouldn't have shit to do.
Even then, this is set in 1962. At the beginning, I think it's John Milner, who he's a bit older. He's out of high school, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He talks about, the strip or whatever is getting smaller, and it used to take you all night in a full tank of gas to make a round. And I'm like, what was that, like 10 cents back then? Now that'd be like $60 or something. So people can't do that. But I did watch it. My grandmama watched the first 10 minutes of this and the last 5 minutes of this when she came in and started asking a bunch of questions, and I yelled at her. But I was asking her about the historical accuracy, and she was like, I was 10 years old in Piggott, Arkansas. So it doesn't really apply. So,
it definitely depends on the town for sure.
If you're in California, sure. But even then, I think in rural places, I mean, that was definitely a thing. You could drink PGA punch. The streets were so barren, you didn't have to worry about killing people. And you
that was my whole thing this entire time. It's not just cruising. You're like pulling up beside people and yelling at them, or being like, hey lady, come over into my car, and like stopping and letting them in. And it's just
that's like something I thought, like, did women really used to like pre Catch a Predator just go into random men's cars? Like, I'll take a ride with you.
Here's
Johnny.
the thing, man. It's kind of well, first of all, it was a smaller town, and
sure,
you can't text people. You might be like, oh, I know that guy through this guy. I don't know. It's a kind of a fascinating thing, back then, before phones and all that.
Yeah, it was smaller at the time. I mean, Modesto, now it's over 200,000 people, but at the time it could have been like the size of our town, like 70,000 easily.
Yeah. Or smaller. Who knows?
Or smaller.
But I don't know. I just think about, even when we were teenagers, like sometimes we would just want to get out and just go. And like sometimes we'd hang out on elementary school playgrounds and shit, talk, just shoot the shit. I remember one time me and Aaron and Matt and Zach Bass and someone else, we like just kept driving around. Aaron would just drive his car around endlessly, and we somehow ended up in like Maumelle, I think, and like at the Walmart at like 2 a.m. We just walked around and aimlessly at Walmart, and was like, why are we doing this? I don't know. But then we like went out to Cadron, which is in my book, and then we like sat in the dark and shit like that. And then we got back to the house, and at like 7 a.m, Aaron's mom was like, where were you guys? You guys were out all night, this and this and this, and like calling up Zach's parents to tell Zach and stuff, and tell him that we were out doing crazy shit. And it's just like, we were at Walmart, dude. Like,
hey, Walmart at 2 a.m. There's some dark stuff though.
You know what I mean? Like, we were not fucking out partying or anything stupid. It was the most pathetic thing to get in trouble for, to be at Walmart and just driving around in the middle of the night. But like, I didn't get in trouble because they didn't know my mom. So
right,
I don't know. I just think about, like, if that's what we were doing in 2010, then I can definitely see the allure of cruising down a fucking strip in 1962.
Of course. I do like this movie it's not sanitized, which I appreciate. People get drunk, people make passes at women, people are creeps, and that's all I'm sure accurate, and in this weird America that I'm still not even sure ever really existed.
There's not enough heroin in this movie for me to believe it's in Modesto, California.
I will say that there's, like you said, it's not sanitized, but I will say the storyline with Milner and that young girl is weirdly, surprisingly tasteful and wholesome.
There's some moments that are uncomfortable. They're supposed to be.
Yeah, well, it's like he obviously does not want to be seen with this young girl. So that there's some comedy there, and
he's like 19 or something. She's like,
and he's like,
freshman.
fuck, and she looks like she's in like 8th grade, maybe 9th or something.
She also threatened to tell the police that he was going to rape her at one point.
Yeah, that hits like a brick today, dude.
Oh yeah,
lost it, dude.
Just casually, the way she says, "I'll tell him you raped me," I'm like, oh shit.
Fucking A, man.
He's like, no, don't. That's not funny. You don't understand.
No, it's like, I don't know. There's a surprisingly progressive way they approach that relationship, because
there is, and because age gaps, especially with a younger woman, it was more accepted back then. But even back then, I think they had.
But first of all, fuck those girls for letting this young girl get into this guy's car.
They showed him.
He could have been a fucking complete freak, like asshole. So
yeah,
it's kind of lucky, I guess.
I mean, look at his car. I would kind of assume he's probably an asshole.
Yeah.
Even though that car is fucking.
It rains. I guess it doesn't rain a lot in Modesto, I guess, but does it just? He doesn't drive in the rain. His engine exposed. I was also thinking, God, none of these cars look aerodynamic. Gas was so cheap. I kept thinking of that the whole movie.
Yeah.
And I will say one thing. We talked about people not watching this movie enough. I like this movie. I don't love this movie like some people do. I don't think I like it as much as you guys. I do enjoy it. This is my second time watching it. First time was in high school or something.
Yeah,
I do think it's a historic film. It's important. And also, adjusted for inflation, this is like the 50th biggest domestic box office gross of all time. This is above Tim Burton's Batman and the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
I was reading the budget was less than $1 million and it made $140 million.
Yeah.
That's why they let him make his, Star Wars thing.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, is that this movie was photographed really well. Like on technical levels, it looks crisp, it looks fresh. It still feels like, I don't know. It just shows the attention to detail Lucas had even before Star Wars with trying to make things look as good as they can. And I don't know.
Lucas's one of his strengths is without a doubt his production design and who he hires for his production design. And that shows in this movie, because you got to know, even when he was working on the script, he was like, this car is going to be in this scene, and this car is going to be in this scene, and this is going to be this. And the attention to detail. And I guess this is before Grease, but we were having kind of a nostalgic revitalization of the 50s that started with this, and then you get, close to a decade later, but you get Grease, you get Back to the Future, things like that. His blocking and cinematography I never considered to be his strong point as a director, and of course, I do. You think he does in this?
I think the blocking, A New Hope's blocking is my favorite fucking blocking in cinema.
I need to rewatch it, I guess.
The way everything's shot, him and Spielberg shoot shit so similarly. That's how I like movies to be shot.
And I guess part of it, it's unobtrusive, because I think a lot of people, for example, I've heard this criticism. Roger Deakins, one of the greatest cinematographers around, obviously, but also his cinematography calls attention to itself. And an argument can be made that in order to reach cinematic verisimilitude, you don't want to call attention to the camera. You want people to be engrossed in the story. So you actually don't want cinematography and blocking that calls attention.
Well,
and you know more about that stuff than I do.
He he didn't have a director of photography on American Graffiti. He had two like cameramen, or like basically he was doing that kind of, but he had multiple cameras on most scenes, so you were getting the back and forth action between the cars, and it felt natural. And he allowed it for improvisation and stuff like that, so it felt like these are actual like kids interacting and having a good time, almost to a documentary like effect. And I think it works to the film's I think it works for the film really well, and it's a different style from THX and Star Wars, but yeah, I like it actually a lot. So
no,
it works, and the performances are incredibly naturalistic, which I was thinking it does. I don't know. It feels like a movie earlier than it is, but and this movie was part of that entire class of filmmakers. We mentioned Coppola, but Lucas is a part of that, evolving kind of away from the studio system, the 50s and early 60s way of doing things, into a more naturalistic, auteur-driven type of filmmaking. So even for that, this is an important film, because there's no sound stages, there's cameramen tucked away in the back of cars, hiding out of sight, and naturalistic performances, and those were all relatively new. I mean, we had On the Waterfront and things before that.
Yeah. And instead of a score, it's just constant fucking 50s music playing.
Diegetic.
Or really fucking roaring engines.
Yeah.
Which is part of the score, I would argue, definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and there is definitely part of the score, because there's an interesting use of sounds where when Richard Dreyfuss is hooking the police car up to the thing, instead of like a tense score, it's like the sound of a train on tracks getting louder and louder, and you can hear it, and that works as like a build of suspense somehow. Just that natural sound that you kind of you don't notice until maybe halfway through the scene. You're like, oh shit.
And Mythbusters busted that myth. They said that wouldn't work, hooking it to that. It wouldn't tear off the axle. So 0 out of 10 for American Graffiti.
Well, so yeah, this movie has a group of people that all know each other, really follows 4 different storylines. We got Milner, who's the fastest person on the strip with his beautiful yellow car, I guess, if some might consider it beautiful. You got Ron Howard and his girlfriend. What's his name in the movie? I always call him Opie, just out of
Steve.
Who?
Steve is Ron Howard.
Well, I'm gonna call him Opie.
It's Opie.
Yeah. Then we got Toad the geek, who gets Opie's car, and
the girl.
And then we get, what's Dreyfuss's character's name?
Curtis.
Yeah, Kurt. Yeah, and yeah, I would say, out of all of them, I'd say Opie is kind of like the most of a fuck.
Oh, absolutely.
I just I kind of didn't think about it, because I haven't seen this movie in like 7 or 8 years, but like, he's a prick, dude.
Yeah.
No, he's trying to do the modern open relationship thing with his girlfriend, but in the 50s.
He just wants a hall pass, dude.
He wants a hall pass. And I understand that 99 times out of 100, if you move 3,000 miles away or whatever to the East Coast to go to college, you and your high school girlfriend, all you had was landlines, and even then, would you have to pay long distance for that? I don't even know how that works. But you're not going to stay together. But he's not subtle about it at all.
No, he's a dumb fucking prick.
No,
and of course, you understand him wanting desperately to get out of his hometown. Of course, you get that. But it's just like, the way he goes about it is the most dumb fucking mid-century boy thing. Like, it opens with him trying to be like, yeah, we should see other people, it's only normal. And then when she agrees to it, then he's like, well, I don't know about that, like,
stupid.
What kind of fucking dumb shit?
And people who do that with the wrong mindset, the guy, and first of all, Ron Howard, I don't know about you, he's never struck me as a heartthrob. He's just a ginger dork, good filmmaker, but come on. it's one of those things. I've heard stories of people like, let's open up the relationship, and then they're mad that their girlfriend's getting laid 100 times more than they are.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, well, not to be sexist, she's a woman and you're a man. Who has an easier time picking up casual lays? Let's just, you idiot, you absolute buffoon, ginger.
Yeah, and it's like, first of all, I will say, I never got into Happy Days that much, but I've always liked Ron Howard. He's made some mid movies, but I like him a lot as a person.
He's made some he's kind of weird. His movies are either mid or classics.
Yeah. More American Graffiti was the last movie he was ever in, like that, like for like a named role. Like obviously he was the narrator in Arrested Development. That's a TV show, you know. And that's when he was like, no, I need to focus on directing. So
it traumatized him.
Well, more American Graffiti bombed, so you can see why he.
Well, and also, I don't know how much I've heard interviews with him. I don't know how much he loved acting. He's obviously famous, but he got into it. What was the show he was in as a kid? He was a kid actor.
Fucking
Andy Griffith.
Andy Griffith.
He was in Andy Griffith. Okay, that's right. Duh. So he's in that, and he graduates from, and he did have a successful career as an adult actor or as a young adult actor, but it's one of those things where after a while he's like, he just had more interest in directing. And I've heard him, it was actually on Mark Maron's podcast, was talking about he would be, once he was a little older, watching the camera operators and the directors and stuff in between takes, or while he was like waiting, for his scene to arrive for him to act. And people would comment like, you're a director, you're paying attention to these other things that a lot of actors, it's not their priority to pay attention to. So good for him. I don't know.
Yeah, I did watch a lot of Andy Griffith as a kid, but it is interesting how similar his daughter is to him. Like, and in some ways, like some of the work she's done on Star Wars shows to me that she's kind of better than her old man, Bryce Dallas Howard, because those episodes are really strong. And then you will go and watch Solo, and it's the most like, yes man shit.
Yeah, but he was hired to do a job.
I know. But it's like Bryce Dallas.
I'm not saying he's a hack, but it was kind of, he was designed to do a hack job because he had to hack together 2 movies.
It's like the whole time I was watching that new Jurassic World, Bryce Dallas Howard, first of all, she's fine as fuck in it.
Hey, real quick before you go on, they had to digitally make her ass smaller for that role, by the way. Her badongadong's way bigger, apparently.
That is a crime against humanity.
I fucking know. Spinning space.
The whole time I was watching that movie, I was like, man, Bryce, get out of these mid movies and go focus on auteur cinema, because I think you could get into some really cool shit. Quit. Don't be like actually be like your dad and fucking get out of this shit and go direct some more shit. I want to see more Bryce Dallas Howard shit. But anyway. Opie's storyline is basically him and his whatever, dude, his girlfriend and their troubles, and then you have Milner, who has to basically babysit this girl for the whole night, even though meanwhile old Harrison Ford's looking for his ass. And I will say Harrison Ford looks fucking sexy in this movie with the cowboy hat.
Yeah, dude.
He also has a weird Midwest accent that comes in and goes away, I feel.
It tripped me out a few times, dude, because I kept forgetting this was in Modesto, and I was like, this could be in like fucking Kansas. But the way
I think it was almost, I don't know. It's like maybe Lucas wasn't exactly sure. He's like, do an accent. And he's like, well, what? He's, you're a cowboy. And he's like a Southern, like, no, not too country. Just do an accent.
Like
also, Harrison Ford was kind of a problem, dude. Like him and like others. Yeah, him and others were like partying, getting drunk every night, and like fucking up the hotels and shit, and like doing stupid shit. And like it got into there was a lot of like partying going on behind the scenes, and George Lucas's hotel room like got set on fire by somebody, like shit like that, dude. And like,
that's hilarious. Well, you have to understand, like, I don't know, how old was Harrison?
Like 29.
Yeah, so okay, that's a little old, but he was even older. So a lot of these people, like Dreyfuss, was born in 47. So yeah, these guys were like 30. Yeah, they're too old for that shit. Never mind.
Never too old to party, friend.
Nah, maybe mid-20s, yeah, you're never too old to party. But also, I can understand if you had a bunch of 20-year-olds on set wanting to do that. But
It's
also,
the first big money they get. Like, they're getting the first big cash check. They're like, let's go get hookers and blow.
yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a crazy young cast. All, Ron Howard, Richard Dreyfuss, Harrison Ford, all of these young stars, and some of them didn't go anywhere, like Toad.
They should have.
It's fascinating though.
And then you got Mackenzie Phillips, who played the little girl who was probably partying with them. She had a coke problem. Very, very young age. Had a very fucked up life.
That sucks.
Yeah, no, if you can read into it, there's a lot of trigger warnings if I went into it, but it's fucked. She had a fucked up life.
Damn.
Badly.
Yeah, and then of course there's the woman that got away for Kurt, and that woman is Suzanne Somers.
Also, Paul Lamont, who's John Milner's character, was hospitalized from an allergic reaction to walnuts.
Oh, yeah.
What a pussy.
And then there was two cameramen that were almost killed, I think, during the drag race scene at the end. So they had some close calls. Yeah. And so yeah, you got Milner's storyline, you got Opie's storyline, then you got Toad, who, this is basically, we're following Toad's like greatest night of his life before he goes AWOL in Vietnam. But because like the way that he pulls this chick is just like complete happenstance. And you do want to root for him the whole movie because it's like, wow, you pulled this chick. It's awesome. But also everything goes wrong. And I like his storyline, I think, the best, especially when he's trying to get liquor. And he's
pulling a "Hey Mister" and he gets ripped off. That's so fucking funny.
Yeah. And that guy comes out shooting at the fucking dude that he gets to such a good joke. I will ask, well, we "Hey Mister'd" a few times in high school.
I've never done it because I was a nerd.
I remember one time successfully Cole "Hey Mister'd" while we were in Maumelle one time, and we were like celebrating because it was like a success. And it was probably some bum who didn't give a shit, but I think I can remember "Hey Mister'ing" maybe once or twice. 1 out of the 3 times was a success. So, but
I remember I have been on the receiving end of "Hey Mister'ing" for cigarettes, and that's one where I'm just like, you're fucking killing yourself. You're 16. Stop it.
Yeah, my sister had to ask me for vape pods because, and here's why I did it.
That's a Gen Z thing.
Here's why I did it is because she's over 18 and she should have been grandfathered in, but she wasn't. And they changed it to 21, even though she was already buying vape pods. And I'd rather have her vape than smoke cigarettes, so I agreed to it.
No, that kind of makes sense.
But it's just like, dude, yeah, she was already 18, like, and then they changed the rule. That's not fair.
I don't know. This country's weird.
I do want to say that Toad and his adventures with Miss Debbie, I think Debbie is the coolest chick in this whole movie.
I think she's my favorite character.
Yeah,
because like the more you watch, you realize she's not dumb. She's just ditzy and weird,
and she's just randomly down to go along with shit. So
yeah, that's the type of woman I'd fall in love with.
She's a down bitch.
She likes the upholstery, guys. It's the upholstery. That's all it is.
She is somewhat of a, I wouldn't say a Mary Sue. I don't know. She's a little top manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah, the kind of the prototype.
Yeah, she is a bit of that. Like, she's cool. She likes cars and liquor and likes the nerd, even though he messes everything up. She absolutely is the prototype of that character, but a bit more believable.
I just like that she uses the word bitchin' to describe.
I was about to say,
yeah.
Like, I was gonna say, her alone makes me want to bring that fucking term back.
Bitchin', dude. Yeah, that's bitchin'.
It's a good term. We take it back.
We're taking it back.
We take it back.
Yeah.
No more negative connotation with it. It's now something cool.
I do, and it is fun watching all the insults of like knuckle sandwich and I'll cream you and all that stuff.
Kick rocks.
If I had
Kick rocks.
if I
That's
had
a
a
good
boyfriend, he'd pound you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kick
So
rocks is
funny.
the one I've been trying to bring back for the past few months. I've been enjoying that one.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Me,
People using it?
just me.
Just
I'm
you.
enjoying it.
All right, you brought
Kick
back
rocks.
you brought back Bulin from 2014, so maybe you can bring back kicking rocks.
I have a poster in my room that is it's me fucking on a big inflatable, and it just says "I'm Boolin' Baby" on it that they put up at a campsite at a festival.
You're gonna get shot one day for it, but
Yeah. Wait,
will
let's
say-
not go to Modesto, California and say
Can I get some chocolate big bookies?
one of my favorite. Yeah, the best comedy comes from Toad, especially when he's just like. I've kind of been there with girls sometimes back in the day, like in high school too. So I feel him on this, where you just like, you can't help yourself, but it's like too late by the time you just start bullshitting to this girl, and he starts telling her that he like rides horses to like hunt animals and shit, and that he has like
What does he
multiple
say?
cars and stuff.
She's like, "Why do you hunt the animals? That sounds cruel or whatever." And he's like, "Well, with bears, it's either them or me."
Yeah.
I was like, "Damn, this guy's actually pretty witty."
It's just like, Jesus, dude. I know, but it's like, why would you say that? Like,
not how you
you imagine this guy on horses, like,
yeah, with an AR-15 just gunning down grizzlies.
That's yeah, that shit's funny. And then also just like the atmosphere of when him and her go down to that like lake area and park the car and stuff. And it reminds me of those like late nights when I was like 19 and just kind of doing similar stuff occasionally. But I don't know if I've ever just like straight up like made out in the back of a car like teenagers do in every stereotypical movie. Did you guys ever?
I literally did that at a football game, the very first football game of
Okay.
sophomore year.
What's weird is I've made out in cars, but it's when I was like over 18. and stuff.
Okay.
Like, it was, but
I never
we were just-
drove to the middle of nowhere to fuck in a car, if that's what you're asking. We just
Okay.
fuck in a gas station parking lot.
Yeah,
They
dude.
did that a lot in that 70s show.
Make out.
I've never had sex in a car, but I'm not going to judge anyone that
No,
has.
I've only had sex.
I got a bed in the back of my
with
car.
cars.
You can take that.
But there was no like area in Conway where everyone went to go make out though.
Lob Lolly. Maybe. I don't know. I didn't
Lolly Bottom, you mean? Lob Lolly's an
Yeah,
ice cream
whatever.
place.
Dude, I'm sick.
Man.
I don't. Do people need it?
No, that was kind of like there was an area in the back of the parking lot at West Campus where everyone smoked cigarettes in the morning before school.
Smoked weed.
And weed, but like there was a lot I just remember the vice principals would come around and be like just casually telling people to put out their cigarettes and shit, and because a lot of them were 18, so what are they gonna do really?
Yeah, just
You know, I don't know, it's just funny because like that's that I got reminded of that when the scene at the sock hop where everyone's smoking in the bathroom, and it's like every teen movie from the 60s to the 80s had kids like smoking in the bathroom.
Smoking in the boys' room.
Yeah, and only once at high school did I walk into the bathroom and smell cigarette smoke. But
We just
had
smoked
pretty...
that K2 Buzzy in the bathroom.
Yeah, dude. No, we
Yeah.
had like sensitive fire alarms, I guess. But sometimes people would get away with smoking shit in the bathrooms. Yeah, that was scary shit, dude. When K2 came around in 10th grade, and I was too scared to smoke weed back then. God forbid I smoked K2. Everyone telling me it was illegal. That's quite a difference from the 60s. Like, imagine showing up to a party in the 60s with K2, you know.
dude,
He
showing
wants
up
to
at
have
this
a
party in the
seizure.
60s with weed was, that was a drug, man. That
Yeah,
was a
maybe
hard
early
drug.
60s, late 60s.
Early 60s. I think in this era it would be.
In this era would have been a little more taboo.
In
This
a
is,
pre-segregation or during segregation, I mean pre-integration
Yeah.
sort of like.
I want to say that this is the year that Owsley Stanley decided to say fuck everything and learn how to synthesize LSD so everybody could have it. He
Interesting.
synthesized like 500 million hits.
Well, it's certainly the end of an era. This is right before the counterculture started ramping up.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
maybe it was in places like San Francisco and stuff, not in Modesto.
Well, no, yeah, the LSD was like, I don't know why we're getting this tangent, but it was
No,
super hard to,
Go
it was
for it.
super hard. It was developed around in the early 60s, and it was super hard to find anywhere. Like it was a rare drug. And Owsley Stanley basically said, I like this shit. I think more people should do this shit. Went and checked out a bunch of books and studied vehemently to learn how to synthesize LSD, and then synthesized it. And he got pulled over once with like, I want to say like 500,000 hits on him. He goes, you can't do anything. He goes, you can't do anything. It's legal. And then like 3 years later, he got pulled over again, and it was illegal.
Wow,
He went to prison.
that's crazy.
Yeah, thank you, Owsley Stanley, for fucking being cool.
Thankfully, K2 went away though. For people at home that don't know, in the early 2010s and late 2000s, there was a synthetic version of marijuana that you could buy at gas stations called K2 that was extremely dangerous. For some reason, instead of just smoking weed, kids would go get that at the gas station, and then some would kill themselves, and then others would zombify themselves, and it was a really scary thing. And I remember this one guy, Tyler Downs, shout out, offered me K2 on the stairwell in between classes in 10th grade. Every day I'm glad I didn't smoke it, because I probably would have went into a zombified fucking state.
It came back under different names. I've heard it been called spice and stuff.
It's always been spice.
Yeah, but it's really died down.
Yeah, because I think people realized increased legalization of real weed, and also
right.
people realizing that's a legitimately dangerous drug. Yeah,
well, a lot of people smoking now who are just like extreme potheads who are on papers and
fucking people on drug court that are fucking stupid.
Yeah, you're an addict. Yeah.
We have just a quick thing here. We have a friend, Cody Long. You might know him through our other work. He smoked K2 in high school and had to be resuscitated by paramedics and almost died. And then the next day, his friend came by and said, "You want to smoke K2 again?" And he's like, "Hell no." And then he's like, "No, it won't do that this time." And he said, "Okay." And then did it again, and then had to have the ambulances called again the second day.
Thanks for
what a
calling out his first and last name.
So that's the difference between our coming of age time period and 1962. Anyway,
no, there is though. The joke is that middle America, you're behind a few decades in culture, so this was still weirdly relevant to my upbringing.
Yeah,
as we've mentioned. Even though I don't know, I got into less hood rat shit than you guys in high school. I was a nerd.
Yeah, but you can relate to.
I can relate to cruising around, being bored.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then there was
14-year-old girls in my car. What?
You were okay. There was you're definitely right about this being kind of the end of that era, because there's still like a form of greasers in this movie, and they go by the pharaohs.
The pharaohs,
which is another thing I wondered, like, how much of that is a movie thing versus like how common were those greasers with the custom Letterman jackets?
Well, I assume pretty popular. It was popular to have different affiliations back then, especially with those custom jackets.
Letterman jackets.
My grandpa's talked about it. That was a little after his time, but he's talked about when he was a coach at UCA and stuff, even. And So, but it's just funny as fuck because the leader of the Pharaohs looks like he's older than me. Like,
he looks like he's 40.
They wanted a rough looking guy.
So well, it's like in Greece, the main like villain of the movie looks like he's 50 fucking years old.
Yeah,
you want a rough looking guy? No,
fucking
Greece,
5 o'clock shadow.
Here they kind of pass as like 17, 18-year-olds. In Greece, they not at all.
No,
half of them look like
funny.
They're fucking
35.
So funny.
You gotta just suspend disbelief. I feel like movies they've gotten better about that. More, I mean, either also people look younger because of A, how they dress, and B, whatever pheromones we're pumping into our chicken.
Yeah.
Or
I like Kurt a lot. I like that, like,
we've barely talked about Kurt.
Yeah, he's the whole movie he's trying to decide if he's gonna stay or not. He's split on it. And instead of spending that last time thinking about it with like his friends and stuff. Instead, he gets caught up trying to find this possible woman in this car, and he gets involved in all this shit. Then he gets pulled into a rough night with the pharaohs, and I just feel bad because like he is a nice guy, but what are you gonna do? These guys are threatening to beat the shit out of him and stuff. I'd just try and
He's
run
like
away if I were him, but
Max Dingus.
it makes
He's
for
like,
dingusy funny thing. And like when they go to that arcade to knock off the arcade machines, I feel bad for the owners because they seem so nice.
They're
And-
super nice.
and
They'll
they're
make
like,
a
Also,
great
how
news
this is
one
another
day.
thing. How privileged are you when college is so cheap? You're like, I don't know if I'm going to go to college on a full ride. Like nowadays, if you got a full ride to an East Coast college and you don't go,
the movie starts with him like getting basically a check for a scholarship, and he's like, I don't know.
It's like you privileged mid-century cuck.
Yeah, dude.
I
But
love Richard Dreyfuss in this role. I mean, there's not a bad performance in this movie.
yeah, and he's great. But it's like he's talking to those guys who are wishing him well, and there's a good way that showing those guys that work at the arcade as well as the people that work at the burger joint and stuff. It helps make the town into a character,
Yeah.
and it connects. And all of this is the through line. The main artery is Wolfman Jack, which everyone's listening to. It really kind of makes the whole city come together in like
Played by the real Wolfman Jack.
really interesting way. And I like that Wolfman's throughout the whole movie and has a good purpose at the end. But
Also, how romantic is that old DJ job? How
Yeah.
cool is that?
Yeah,
It's
my
you-
my
you
grandpa.
are what's weird is like if that's your job and you're staying up late at night, you probably don't have much of a home life. You might be a eternal bachelor.
yeah,
So in a way, it's a kind of a sad, lonely life, but also you were the coolest dude around.
that's the paradox, and that's why it's so interesting. And
My grandpa was a radio DJ
Oh, yeah.
around the same time here in old Fort Smith, Arkansas.
that's cool as fuck.
Yeah,
Now, Wolfman, though, he was nationally known. He was
Yeah, like
was a big
Casey
thing.
Kasem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I will say before we get to more Wolfman Jack, though, I want to talk about the scene where he like he's talking to those guys who wish him well for his future while they're knocking off the arcade machines and stuff, and they get off with all that quarters. It's like, first of all, you're a fuck for going after quarters, dude. How pathetic.
That is one of my favorite lines of the movie. Though he comes in, he's like, "We're done," and they're like, "Done with what? Done with the fun." All right, you guys can come back and have fun anytime.
They probably got $10 went a lot longer, a lot farther back.
Yeah,
Richard
I just-
Dreyfuss, I don't know why he's trying to endear themselves to those guys, because he has this sense of his adolescence slipping away, and he has these
Yeah.
people who are older and perpetually adolescent. And you think he could have just said, "Hey, those guys are stealing from you. We could call the cops or something." But he just
Yeah.
has to be.
You don't want to be a bitch, though.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Buzzkill.
He's just kind of a dingus. I don't know. He
Yes.
they probably would have fucking roughed him up. So I don't know. But
The key to knowing that he's a dingus is when he's in the car with his ex-girlfriend and her friend, and he just keeps egging on her friend to the point where he's kicked out of that
Yeah.
fucking car.
like, he could have spent the night like just chilling with those two chicks and stuff and like hung out.
Okay, but that's really funny when he's basically like, "Hey, this chick has the hots for you and is in love with you," and just to troll her and just to mess
Yeah.
with her.
Yeah.
That's a funny.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It's worth it for the trolling.
But some of the shit that he gets into it makes me feel bad because like back in high school, sometimes we would go to Hastings and we would rip off Hastings a little bit, steal keychains, fucking movies sometimes. I feel bad about that. But
Yeah,
like,
now it's out of business, Adrian.
yeah, now I just torrent movies instead. But but I never got into major trouble like that, like stealing, but I will say it did remind me of a time in the cul-de-sac where That was back when I was getting 9 out of 10 stoned all the time and couldn't think coherently. And Cody comes in and says, "Hey, Rudy needs our help to move this dryer that she bought off of Craigslist to her house." I'm like, okay. So I just jump in the back of his truck and we go literally right down the road, and the dryer sitting in the front yard. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's already here ready for us. Cool. Whatever. I'll help him lift it in. I'm glad she got this good deal. It'll help her family. Okay. And then too stoned to even realize what's going on, but we lifted that dryer, took it right to the cul-de-sac to where she is. She lives right next to us. Helped her carry it in. Soon as like fucking 10 minutes later, the guy from that house is like banging on her door saying, "I caught you, you motherfucker. I know you stole my fucking dryer." And I'm sitting there fucking ripped out of my mind. Like, we just stole this fucking dryer. And I started berating Cody. He's like, "Dude, she paid me $10. He didn't even give me part of that $10, asshole." And I'm like, "You fucking piece of shit." And it's like, "You knew it, huh?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "You didn't say anything. You didn't say, hey, let's help rip this chick off." And he's like, "Well, I thought you might act kind of weird about it." Yeah, you might think, huh? You might think might act a little weird. And then she didn't know my last name or anything. So when the cops eventually came, she was like trying to pin it on us because she was a piece of shit person. And she's like, "Yeah, it was these guys, Adrian and Cody, and they were asking for further information." Fuck her, first of all. I'll never forget that. But
Yeah, I used to have to drive Rudy to the nursing home to pick up pills every week.
Stupid bitch, low life piece of shit. But also fuck Cody for tricking me into that when I was too stupid and stoned to realize what was going on. And so that kind of reminded me of that in this movie, of like, except he wasn't stoned, but like kind of not realizing what you're getting into. And
naive, super naive.
Yeah, so I've stolen a dryer before. Didn't mean to. But anyway.
Why was it on his front lawn? It's garbage then.
No, I think he had it listed for sale, I think, and she saw that listing.
Just took it without paying.
Yeah. And she kept saying, like, "Come on, hurry up, let's go." And it's like, I was wondering at the time, I was like, "Why are you pushing me so fucking hard? I'm doing this as a favor to you, asshole. Quit pushing me." Anyway.
I'm sure her kids are turned out great.
Yeah.
I fucking love their kids, dude.
So I guess we can go back to Opie, whatever his name is. Steve. Yeah.
At say Ron Howard.
Yeah, Ron Howard, Opie. He's they're like, he's trying to get her to dance. He's being a dick about it. And obviously there's now a complete like beef between them. And instead of like taking her somewhere else aside to like try and thoughtfully talk shit out, instead he's got to be a fucking dumb male stereotype about it and kind of be confused somehow, almost inexplicably, and not sense her feelings at all. And then they have to go out into the dance floor as like the alumni couple or whatever. And it's all just very awkward. I forgot how awkward that is.
That actress just passed away like last month.
Cindy Williams.
Shit, really?
Yeah. Not the whatever her name was, Leslie is her name. The character name, yeah, she died on the 23rd.
Oh man.
Wow.
Lori. From
Lori, yeah.
Vern and Shirley.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, okay. That's where I know him from.
That's her other big credit.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's super young in this. Yeah, that whole scene's super awkward. I hate to be the people around them if they got any close. Like she even puts like their other friends in between them by being like, "You don't mind if I take your man and dance with him instead of dancing with Steve?" And I was like, there's so much pettiness on both sides because both sides haven't communicated. Kids. Neither of them have communicated.
I get it, but they're also 18, and it's like you're about to go to college. And I get what they're going for. I feel like his is like the weakest storyline of the movie to me. And not all of it works for me. I feel like there could have been better execution of the way they like their relationship and how they talk to each other and stuff. And I get like the miscommunication is how she goes off and just wants to get into Harrison Ford's car and all that. But like, I don't know. Not all of that works for me, but I still like it well enough.
It's you don't root really for either of them, but certainly not for Steve.
Yeah.
In that storyline. Also in that storyline, real quick at the dance, that that teacher just calls a bunch of like sophomores sexy.
Yeah.
At the dance. That's a cool.
Yeah, I was thinking about it as like, okay, they have the nice almost like progressive portrayal of Milner taking care of that like 13, 14-year-old girl and not being a fuck. But then you have this teacher who not only does that, but like kind of interrupts Steve to like go walk off with some fucking student.
I almost thought like obviously he's probably in some sort of relationship. What if she's like, hey, I haven't had my period yet this month? Stuff like that.
Garbage.
I was thinking that. That could be like a C plot that's kind of under the radar.
Definitely, it could be a C plot, but also, yeah, fuck that guy, fucking creepy.
I think it shows that though. This movie does show those shades of gray of the time, and I think that guy is supposed to be creepy. You're supposed to feel uncomfortable with Milner's situation, but he's despite being kind of a greasery dude, but he's not a greasy dude. Which is nice.
Yeah.
Oh boy, man.
This is all surprising considering George Lucas's history of wanting to make Marion Ravenwood fucking 14 when grown up Indiana Jones like had a relationship with her or something.
14 and 25 or something.
Yeah, something like that.
The
very questionable.
It is. He almost thought it was funny. He was like, it'll be kind of like a funny, like, comedy sort of thing. Like
funny, haha, funny like statutory.
But then there's a young 14-year-old Ahsoka Tano who shows up in that tube top outfit that George Lucas pushed for.
Oh, did he push for that?
Yeah, really? That was his design. And Dave Filoni was like, well, okay. But then season 3, he's like, we're going to age her up now so we can change her costume. And he aged her up to like 17, 18, But yeah, it's a weird.
Do we know if George Lucas was on the Epstein flight logs?
I don't know. It's a weird
George
thing.
Lucas can buy he's rich enough to buy his own pedophile.
I'm not saying anything by it. I'm just saying it's a little strange.
We won't go off into this tangent because I'll spend the rest of this podcast going off about this.
Yeah,
you'll start Epstein.
Yeah, conservative conspiracy theories about Tom Cruise or not Tom Cruise. What's his name?
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks. Yeah.
Tom Hanks. Okay. Just you wait.
Whatever, dude.
Just you wait.
I will say, the kind of the heart of the movie to me is when Kurt tries to get in a message with Wolfman, and he talks about, he's like, oh, Wolfman's not here. Oh shit. Well, I was hoping to get this message out to this girl, this mystery woman. And then Wolfman really sets him straight, and he's like, okay, look, like when Wolfman comes in here, he is a legend. He's a cool guy. He's been everywhere. He talks about where he's been and what he's done and stuff like that. You need to go get out and experience life, kid, this and that. And he still agrees to do the message for him. And then you get the great reveal that is Wolfman Jack in there, and it wasn't pre-recorded, and that he is sitting in there alone at 5 a.m, not doing shit except for doing that. And as much as Wolfman Jack is like this legend, that is such a human, awesome moment. And it's that moment that, whether Kurt realizes it or not, he's already decided, because of that interaction and then seeing that it's Wolfman, that he is going to go on to college. And even when he's on the phone, answering the phone at the meetup that he specified for the mystery girl, he has already decided in his mind before he's even picked up the phone, because she's like, okay, well, can you meet out tonight? And he's like, no, that'll be too late. And I guess thank God she didn't say, yeah, I'll meet you up now, but I still think he had already had it planned.
No, because he had an excuse, which is people do that.
Yeah.
She was an excuse of maybe, and you can do this with any sort of crush or somebody. You're falling in love with the idea of somebody or a thing or a place or whatever, and not the thing itself. And thank God he had the foresight to be like, this is not real. I've built this up in my head. I'm searching for this sort of eternal youth through this beauty that does not exist. And she also might already be in a relationship or something, we hear.
Prostitute. I do want to
yeah.
Where that?
He's a $30 whore according to Pharaohs.
Yeah, that's a lot of quarters.
I don't know if you guys watched the fucking Weird Al movie that came out.
I did.
Jack Black plays Wolfman Jack, and I don't think there's a better person to have fucking played it.
That was a good throwback. I like that. That's a good idea. I'm gonna look up inflation real quick of $30 in 1962 just to see how much this chick would have cost.
Well, say that whole radio culture, I'm almost sad it's died. I know we have podcasts now, but although I've heard about those, it's one of those jobs that back in the day you just had perpetual jet lag. Again, Mark Maron, I'm a big fan of his podcast. He was talking about he would just have coffee and M&Ms and cigarettes and just somehow make it through every morning.
Yeah.
Your body never adjusts because you still have other responsibilities to take care of.
I'd be a radio DJ in a fucking second if it was offered to me.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder how well that pays now. Although, yeah, it'd be cool. I could do it.
I've
been on radio. I've been on Road Dog Trucking Radio on XM.
Yeah, shout out. I do. Yeah. It's kind of something we've lost is everyone tuning into the same couple of radio stations, everyone tuning into the same live television.
Well, now everything is iHeartRadio.
Well, I know, but it's like, if you're going to watch this new episode of whatever, all of America is going to tune in within this time period together. It felt like such a collective event. And it felt like radio and TV connected the nation in like such an interesting way. And now everyone's separated on different streaming platforms, watching it whenever. And,
there wasn't that you go to the work or the playground. You still get that with sports of like, oh, you catch the game last night. But you go after, and oh, did you see that TV special? Or my mom was talking about when Roots came out, like, and she was in high school or whatever. Yeah. I mean, every day at lunch, they would be like, oh my God, did you watch Roots last night? It was a big cultural moment.
We had that back in high school too. Like when new episodes would premiere of something like,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I remember whenever Game of Thrones was still like Game of Thrones was before this whole HBO Max stuff. The only way you could watch it was watching it on cable, and we would fucking be at the bars together watching the new episode and having our fucking minds blown.
Yeah, and there wasn't like watch it before you get spoiled. I mean, kind of, but not really. I don't know. It's just the way it connected everybody. It was interesting, and
spoiler culture has changed. People
it has changed.
More respectful of it.
Be sure to drink your Ovaltine.
Also, $30 back then was $290 now, so about $300 horse. So that's still kind of cheap, actually.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
It's I don't know.
Anyway,
Casher's the expert here, apparently.
I'm not, but I know we won't go to that.
I kind of find it. I guess it could be kind of realistic in a smaller town, but
yeah, absolutely.
I'm saying I don't know if I agree that it kind of takes that car crash for Steve to be like, okay, never mind, we'll stay together, I'll do this and that, and it's like, okay, whatever. I don't know.
No, it was definitely like a panic, emotional like choice. And he became a happy insurance salesman and whatever else.
I guess that's I guess his character is the most realistic in that way of like being a kind of a fuck, and then he sticks around and then he becomes just an average schmo, whatever.
Insurance salesman is one of those things. It's that an accountant if you have to think of a boring job for like a middle American guy.
I guess it really does make sense. I'm glad like Kurt making that decision was like baller, because It's like, okay, he lives in Canada and he's a fucking writer for a living. Sounds pretty good out of all of the things.
Depends
He
on
could
where
be
in
lost in
Canada.
fucking Vietnam.
Yeah, well, here's the thing.
That's
MIA.
also realistic. Oh, we're gonna talk about more American Graffiti, aren't we?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's kind of undermined by More American Graffiti because really he fucking hates it, obviously, but he becomes a deserter and deserts.
Does he really?
Yeah, he becomes Toad becomes a deserter and deserts to Europe and fakes his own death and is never seen again. And the other characters think he's fucking dead. So hopefully,
What?
hopefully he got to live some cool life in Europe, but he probably got fucking.
Do you consider More American Graffiti to be canon?
Not really, considering George Lucas oversaw the production, but he didn't write and direct it. So, but he kept trying to get all these different directors to direct More American Graffiti, but none of them wanted to do it. And he tried to get John Landis to do it, and he said no. And then, so the guy that he got to do it was kind of like their fifth choice or some shit, So
Yeah, and he has not directed anything else of note. He's directed some like Twilight Zone, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He wrote Convoy. He wrote on Convoy, but that's about it.
Lucas obviously post A New Hope had better shit to do, like work on, Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark. So
yeah,
I am thankful he didn't make this instead. But yeah, I will say I like Kurt's ending, obviously. But I do like, if you just don't know anything about More American Graffiti, kind of the realness of like, Milner died by a drunk driver. That's kind of fucked, sad, but that shit happens in life. And then Toad gets lost in Vietnam. I don't know.
It's a really interesting tonal choice.
Yeah,
you have a very uplifting ending of his best years are ahead of him and stuff, undercut by two, essentially deaths. It's like, oh, by the way, two of these guys died, one by a drunk driver, one in Vietnam.
I am hopeful.
But
yes,
it's just like, I don't know. It's so realistic. And like, there's several people from our school that have like died in the last 10 years. And it's fucked. But it's
going to
like,
be more.
Yeah.
I think I'm reading into this More American Graffiti. I think the most realistic thing is that Debbie goes from being a drunk to a fucking hippie.
Yeah.
Immediately
Yeah, but it's just like, it's
That's
kind of
fun.
pandering to that, like, summer of love bullshit. I don't know.
Trades Old Harper whiskey for marijuana.
Yeah, but she's so fun in this movie, and I like that. They get their car stolen, and she still just kind of going along with it.
She's a dumb bitch.
She's cool.
Manic Pixie Dream Girl,
and she does, and she kisses him at the end and everything. It wasn't just like I'm using him for booze.
She asked for a second date.
Yeah, exactly. It's the fact that she asks for a second date that solidifies her as the coolest person in this movie. Because for a while, you're expecting her just to use him for money and for liquor, but it's not the case. So I love that aspect of the movie a lot. But I do like how everything kind of convenes on the strip at the end where Toad's like motioning him and all that, and then all fucking Steve's driving up trying to be a badass, but he doesn't seem badass at all because he's a little wimpy ginger boy. I don't know.
It's Ron fucking Howard.
Yeah, exactly.
Now he's bald.
You'll never see Ron Howard.
Fucking 19-year-old Ron Howard, like, yeah, I'm gonna kick your ass, buddy. Like it doesn't work.
Hey, you better back up, son. Why don't you kick rocks?
Whoa, pal. Now hold on. Hold your horses. I don't know. That's just funny to me.
This one's knuckle, this one's sandwich. Which one do you want?
And it's kind of like in the way that it's a hangout movie, Miller just drops off that girl and then she goes. To her, it was like one of the greatest nights of her life. To him, it was just kind of a weird pain in his ass. But he kind of is fond of that little connection he had with her. You can tell it was a nice little thing. And he even gives her his what's it called, the knob or whatever.
Yeah, which I had to think of the Mandalorian when they did that.
Yeah,
shift stick knob.
Yeah,
Grogu. I'm like, I don't know. It's like, that came up.
It's cute though, because she's gonna tell all of her little 8th grade buddies like, oh my God, I rode around with Milner, the dreamiest guy, the fastest guy on the strip. You know,
Yeah,
she's gonna
yeah,
remember
yeah.
that for the rest of her life. I love that kind of shit.
You got it too.
So
Mackenzie Phillips was a good actress back then too. She's been in a lot of really good shit. Again, she got like I said, a traumatic fucking upbringing. So
yeah.
Seeing her that young was fucking crazy. I forgot that she's in this.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like they all have little arcs of their own, but it doesn't have to be this crazy, like fleshed out thing. Teenagers can just exist. It can just be that's what I like about these kinds of hangout movies. It's just a tiny little slice into these people's lives. And that's all you need. And it's very Americana, and it's all very much my shit. So I'm glad I revisited this movie after like 7 or 8 years.
It's been 13 years for me.
Especially how much it influenced my fucking book. Because I could consider this like the spiritual successor to American Graffiti and Days of Confused, except for 2010 instead of 1976 and 1962.
And if you want to buy it,
yeah,
there's
if
a
you want to
link
buy it,
below.
go check the thing below. This is an official sponsor for the Harbor Now, my own book. It'll help us
Sponsor
grow.
your own product.
Yeah, it's gonna help us grow the channel. I think, you know, it'd be cool. Yeah, so
It would be cool.
if you have any more final thoughts on this movie, let's hear them.
American midfeedy.
Yeah, good joke.
Gas
All right,
was
well.
cheap.
Yeah, gas was cheap. So anyway,
If you happen to liken yourself to a Miss Debbie, I'll put my phone number in the description below. Please call me. I'm very lonely.
You're over 18 though, I assume.
Yeah, or if you're a lonely 14-year-old girl, you can also call Cash.
All right,
That's Scott's Milner.
Scott can fucking make these jokes all he wants, I guess. I'm not gonna stop him, but I will say this does not. His ideas and thoughts do not represent the Harbor as a whole.
Tom Hanks is a pedophile.
All right, thanks for watching, everybody.